Aspire Talks. I'm your host, Tasin, Director of International Relations, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Abibani Her. Today, we're going to talk with Nazifa Afu regarding her research life, and also I'm just going to pass the floor to Abiba. Can you hear me, Abiba?
Yes, thank you, Dasin. Hello, everyone. Today on Aspire Talks, we have Nazifa Tabassum, PhD students in molecular, cellular, and integrative bioscience at Penn State, gracing us with her presence. Thank you, Nazifa Apu. Um, Nazifa Apu, formerly a public health professional with over 3 years of experience, completed her honors degree in biotechnology from Monash University. With her experience in molecular microbiology techniques, passion for science communication, and interest in translational research to help people lead healthier lives, she shines bright. I bet we are all eagerly awaiting her valuable insights and views. So let's jump into the session without further delay. Assalamualaikum Apu. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. And thank you for the kind introduction. So I'm very excited to be here. And I can present and you guys can ask me questions in between, or we can have a chat at first, whichever you guys prefer. আর আমি ইংলিশেও কথা বলতে পারি, বাংলাতেও কথা বলতে পারি। So যেটা সবার preference, আমি ওটাই prefer করব. So what do you guys think? Shall I share my screen first and we can have...
Yeah, sure. That would be very grateful. You
Okay,
can start with the
great.
presentation and পরে আমরা আমাদের question ask করব.
Okay, great. আচ্ছা, আমি তাহলে screen share করি। Okay. Great. Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yep, we can see the screen and জাস্ট আমি একটা মিনিট নিব সময় আমি রিকোয়েস্ট করব সবাইকে not to turn on their mic without the permission of the host, and যদি কোনো questions থাকে, queries থাকে, they can raise your hands in the chat box options, just like React গিয়ে একটা raise hand করলে হবে, then we can selectively randomly select some participants to ask the question directly, or otherwise আমাদের কাছে already participant question আছে that we're going to ask to her. So এটাই, to maintain the flow of the session, I'm going to request everyone just to coordinate with us, and inshallah I'm personally looking forward to have a interactive session with her, and of course একটু patience থাকো তোমরা. I know it's the first Ramadan, but still, it's just an hour. So sorry Apu, you can just continue.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, the timing is really bad. আমি পরে realize করেছি how Ramadan will be in that time. So thank you for everyone who's here. I know that this is a busy time, Takar. So thank you for being here. So, as you've already introduced me. My name is Nazifa. I'm a PhD student at Penn State, at the Huck Institutes of Life Sciences. I'm a programmer, নাম হলো Molecular, Cellular, and Integrative Bioscience, which is very interdisciplinary. And as you'll be able to see from my journey and my choices, I am a very collaborative person. I like connecting the dots, which is why I chose this program. And we can talk more about interdisciplinary programs if you guys have questions. So to start off, I wanted to say that I was in your shoes not too long ago. So this is a Facebook status of mine from November 2014. So A-level শেষ হয়ে যাচ্ছিল, কি করব জানি না। তো আমি I put up a whole status যে আমি প্রথমে কি হইতে চেয়েছিলাম ছোটবেলায়, কাঁঠাল বাগানের মাস্তান। That's the first thing I ever said, right? Therefore, I wanted to be a doctor because I loved biology. And biology, পছন্দ হলে you have to be a doctor. আর তো কোনো career choice নেই আমাদের. Or because we don't grow up seeing scientists. We don't know what a career in science looks like. So I just knew that I love biology and I will do something related to that. And I said, I still don't know what I want to be, and I don't think I will anytime soon. But what I do know is that I want to be a good person, be happy, and want to learn, whether that's through biochem research or genetic engineering or even writing or economics. Who knows what I'll do? Here's to the future. So I wanted to show you guys this to just share that no one knows what they're doing. I didn't know what I was doing. And the time you guys are in right now, it's a very stressful time because you think that it will dictate the rest of your life. Your life will evolve with you. So don't worry. No one knows what they're doing. Okay. So keep that in mind and just focus on doing what you like. Okay. So my story, আমি বড় হয়েছি ঢাকায়, and because my parents are both medical doctors, I grew up in hospital quarters in Dhaka, so Dhaka Medical Hospital. And every day I saw this scene that I put a picture of. Um, and although my parents were treating the patients, were coming to the hospital, my question was, ওনারা কেন হাসপাতালে আসছে to begin with, right? How do we prevent that from happening? And now I know that that's public health, that's a whole field. But at the time, I didn't know that, you could even pursue a career as a public health researcher. So that is what really drove my interest in science and in all like applications. This is what I say because it's the truth. Because I saw this and I wanted to understand why this happens. Like, why do people, how do we prevent diseases and things like that? And I knew I needed a strong foundation in biology for this, right? So my mom is an amazing human being, and she's the one who, inspired me to pursue my studies overseas. And I told her that আমি biology পড়তে চাই কিন্তু ডাক্তার হতে চাই না, and she's like, কিন্তু ডাক্তার না হয় কি হবা? I'm like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Just trust me here. And she did, and I think she's actually even here in the audience today, probably because she's so supportive of everything I do. So I was the last person in my cohort to declare my major. So I got into a Bachelor of Science program, and there are many majors. So there's biomedical science, biotech, I think microbiology was also there, I think, at the time. So our program director, আমাকে তার রুমে ডেকে was like, okay, Nazifa, you need to decide on a major. Like you need to do it. Like everyone has declared their major, so you need to do it. And I'm like, but I don't want to limit myself. So she said, Acha, there's biotech, which kind of encompasses everything as well. And you can do an extended major, so kind of like a double major. So why don't you choose that? So I was like, okay, that makes sense. So because again, that was the most interdisciplinary program and I didn't want to limit myself. So I chose biotech for my major and I did an extended major. And I also did an honors year where I worked with poop. So basically, I worked with the microbiome, and I'll talk about what the microbiome is in a minute. But my work was basically to look into the gut microbiome of humans and also surrounding farm animals in a town in Malaysia called Segamat. And even during my undergrad, I did another research project in a virology lab as well. So this is just to share with you guys that you'll have a lot of opportunities, hopefully, to do research in your undergrad and just take your chances, explore fields. Like I explored the field of basically virology and also like microbiome sciences. And I preferred microbiome. I fell in love with the microbiome actually. So don't again, like be afraid to explore and try new things, right? I also tried cancer biology and I felt like, okay, I like microbiology better. So, play around with things, explore things, right? And I just wanted to share that microbiome is basically the bacteria that you have in your gut, yes, but you also have viruses, you have fungi, etc. But overall, when we say microbiome, we mean the universe of microbes around us, and also like the metabolites that they produce, right? So it's also the interaction of the microbes with the environment. So that's just a little spiel on microbiome because I love microbiome, so I want you guys to know what it is. Then I graduated in 2019 and I came back to Bangladesh and I did an internship at ICDDRB where I again worked with poop and gut microbiome, and I was learning about key projects hoche Bangladesh working on the gut microbiome as well, which was great. But of course, then something happened in 2020. Anyone can guess what it was? COVID, so no funding in sciences, right? So my research kind of shifted to infectious disease. And I wanted to, help out during the pandemic as well. So I volunteered in a COVID lab during the pandemic, which was, again, I think that was also a turning point for me that I knew I want to work in this field even more than ever, because I think that was totally like, is someone saying? that was like wartime, right? So I was really fortunate that I was able to help in Bangladesh as well. Um, and then I decided to go on Twitter and DM my favorite microbiologist, who is a amazing Bangladeshi scientist called Dr. Shejuti Shaha. And I didn't know if I would ever work with her or anything. I just sent her a message saying that I love her work and I would love to learn more from her. And she was like, okay, why don't you like send me your like CV and like let's talk about your interests. And after 3 interviews, I was offered my first job, and I got to work with someone I look up to so much as a scientist, and she's still one of my mentors, and she's amazing. And I could like work not only as a microbiologist, but also as a science communicator. And I knew about science communication from Monash because we had a course on science communication. And তখন we had a science communicator teach us. And she was the first science communicator in Malaysia. And I never knew that Bangladesh, like I could work as a science communicator, that could even be a thing, right? So this is again to share with you guys that your creativity doesn't take away from your skills as a scientist, right? It only adds to your skills as a scientist. So I made like videos, I updated the website, I made infographics, I helped out with grant applications, and doing all of those things, I like really helped me develop my skills as a scientist as well. And of course, I was also, so I started as an assistant microbiologist and science communicator. I was there for 3.5 years. So I got promoted to research officer and science communicator in between. So I learned a lot in the lab. I was very, like, the Child Health Research Foundation is amazing. They also have amazing training programs if you guys are interested. So I learned a lot in the lab on sequencing and molecular biology because I didn't get to do sequencing in Malaysia. So I learned that here. And it was amazing. I was, again, very fortunate that I got to do that. And also I presented a poster in Singapore at the One Health Congress based on the research that we did at CHRF. So again, that helped me build myself as a scientist. But every time I walked out of the lab, I also got to share that love for science with, people, and especially girls in Bangladesh, like Sabiha, right? Which is one of my favorite like parts about this journey that I've had, that I could just talk about science and get paid to talk about science. But that's like the dream job, right? So this is again, and I met amazing girls and amazing like students like you guys who had great aspirations. And I got to, like in this picture, there are girls who want to be illustrators, forensic scientists, aerospace engineers, professional chefs, or even social workers, right? And I could just talk about science with them, do little experiments with them, and basically show them that a career as a scientist is an option, right? শুধু ডাক্তারই হতে হবে না, even though ডাক্তার হওয়া is great, but like that's not, we have a lot of doctors, we need more scientists as well, right? And again, I met amazing people at CHRF, and the program, which is still running, and I encourage you guys to check it out. It's called Building Scientists for Bangladesh. And it was covered in a lot of places, including the Daily Star and also Asian Scientists. So you can read more about it if you're interested as well. So again, that is like a huge part of my journey as a scientist, to be able to do things like this, right? And I loved being a professional science communicator. We got to do like we got to have a session in Taka Lit Fest with my coworkers, Jasi Abu Aditya Bhaiya. And I met, like, for example, this is Krishna, who came up to me after the session. He's like, আমি কখনো like scientist দেখিনি, তো আপনার সাথে একটা ছবি তুলি. And that's one of my favorite photos as well. So being able to do this is very rewarding. And also I met amazing fellow women in STEM. I got to do like webinars and things like that. And like, again, as a developing scientist, I didn't think যে public speaking করা লাগবে কখনো. So these are the kind of soft skills that I developed through things like this. But most importantly, I met amazing people, which is the best part. But 3.5 years of professional development, I realized that, okay, it's time to build myself as a scientist. So I applied to grad schools in 2023, and I accepted the offer of Penn State, especially like what sold me on Penn State was their One Health Microbiome Center, which I'm now a part of. So again, we're looking at the microbiome, but in an interdisciplinary lens. So there's human health, agricultural health, and environmental health, and together we can achieve one health. So again, this program is very interdisciplinary, right? This field is very interdisciplinary. So we work with like clinicians, we work with vets, we work with social scientists. So again, this is to tell you guys that like I think the best parts about science for me is like looking at things through multiple angles through your collaborators. And I get to do that at Penn State, and I love every second of that. So again, this is what I said in 2014, right? Ki korbo jani na, who knows? But here's to the future. And now in 2025, I call myself a scientist and a storyteller. So I get to do what I love every day. And I describe myself as your friendly neighborhood biologist who tries to do some cool science that help people lead healthier lives. জানি না কতটুকু করতে পারবো, but চেষ্টা করছি, right? And like, this is a general advice to like every one of you here, that your curiosity and your commitment is key to build yourself as a scientist. And just ask questions every day, but don't forget your creativity. Don't think যে হ্যাঁ খালি পড়াশোনা করতে হবে, মুখস্থ করতে হবে, and that's biology and that's science, right? That's not it. You have to, even to come up with your hypotheses, you have to be like creative. And when you write a paper, it's like writing a story, right? So there's creativity in everything you do, and it doesn't take away from who you are as a scientist. And think about what kind of problems you want to solve, right? And what kind of skills you need to achieve it. We need like lab skills as a scientist, yes, like, you have to be able to do experiments, but you also like এখন there's dry lab, which we call like bioinformatics and coding and things like that. And then there's the wet lab, which is experiments in the lab. এখন everything is becoming so like interdisciplinary that you need like both of these skills. So, develop those skills, develop your coding skills, try to do, internships or like training programs to develop your lab skills, for example. But like overall, just, keep your curiosity and commitment going. And I'm so excited for all of you guys to find your way. And if you ever need any support, help, questions, or even kannakati korte chao, I'm here. Just drop me a message on LinkedIn. My name is Nazifa Tabassum. I hope you'll find me on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, that's all from me, and I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Apu. That was very insightful. Like we had all these questions prepared, and you answered every one of them and more with just that presentation. And it was very touching. Like we needed those answers. All of us needed those answers. We're all struggling to find our ways. But I kind of still have one more question left.
Yeah, sure.
STEM is very hard, right? STEM is very hard. It's like a lot of work and stuff. So I wanted to ask, in those hard moments, what was the light that helped?
That's a great question. It's also a very hard question because STEM is very hard. And I think like most of the times your experiments fail and that, or your code doesn't work, or like these little moments of frustration, like they add up like I think 70% of your time, right? But so it is frustrating, it is hard. But I think what kept me going was knowing that, oh, thank you, Afra, was knowing that I need to like, the thing about STEM is that like science is refuted by better science, right? So you just have to like you have to troubleshoot and get to the optimum condition and your experiment will work. So I think for me, the driving force was the question, এই experiment আমি কেন করছি, to answer this question. Why is this question important, right? And I need to be able to solve this question. And if I can't solve it, then I have mentors who I go to and then I cry and be like, কেন কাজ করতেছে না, right? আমি কি করতেছি জীবনে, কেন আসছি আমি এখানে, right? And yeah, so I think first of all, at times there was no light, at times there was just frustration. But I think just reminding myself that the research question I'm trying to answer is important and why that question matters. I think that's what kept me going and looking for like people who can help me, answer that question. Does that answer?
Yeah,
Like,
that was a very good answer, honestly.
Thank
What advice would you give yourself? Like, if you could turn back time, if you say you met Nazifa from 2014, or Nazifa was pursuing to be a STEM PhD, or like, try to answer those questions. Nazifa who was going through very tough times, what are the advices you would give to her if you had the chance?
you. I think I would just tell her to like, take it easy and like not stress out so much. I think everything, and keep again, talk to more. What I didn't do when I was like a teenager, I didn't have LinkedIn. I didn't have like all of these resources to like reach out to people who I admire. So I think one advice I would give was like, find people whose work you like or who you admire and reach out to them. Like again, I got my first job by just like sending a Twitter message to someone I looked up to. So I think an advice would be just first of all, chill out. It's okay. Like life will be okay. আমি অনেক কান্নাকাটি করতাম ছোটবেলায়, অনেক anxious ছিলাম, so I'm just like everything will be okay. First of all, calm down, like enjoy, go out with your friends, have fun, right? And I would give that advice to all of you as well. And then second of all, try to find people, who you admire and like reach out to them and see what they have to say. And yeah.
That's also a great answer. We do struggle with chilling out, honestly, here and there, especially when things starts to get very frustrating and we start feeling out of control. So that's a very good advice. Is there anything you do differently?
Yeah, that goes back to my like I think the answer to my last question was I think I would try to be like try to reach out to people more and like ask them like for advice or ask them if I can work with them on anything. And yeah, I would just I think like I would try to do maybe more like things other than my studies. So like, doing internships or stuff like that more. I think like I'm like again, I sound so old when I say this, but আমাদের সময় এত like, high school internships were not that common. So I think that's also like a generation thing
What were your
maybe.
ECAs like during high
I
school?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Now that I think back, I did like writers club, community service club, and like stuff like that, school clubs and stuff. Kintu not like full on. I think now you guys have like internships, and you guys are amazing. Like I see like তোমাদের CV on like LinkedIn. And I'm like, how did you guys do all of this and you're still a teenager? So you guys are amazing. I think I didn't explore as much outside of my school like bubble. So I would do that differently, I think, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Apu. I think we're all waiting for all these questions we have regarding biotechnology and stuff. So I'd let Tasin get started on all the questions audiences have. So
Sure.
over to you, Tasin.
Okay, thanks, Aviva. First of all, I would like to convey my heartfelt gratitude to Mrs. Badrun Nessa Begum. Got to see one of the most wonderful messages. Like, happy to see in this wonderful webinar, my daughter. Hope it will encourage the younger generation. So, uh, to be honest, like having a supported parents is it's like a blessing in my opinion, and I think so. You already fought that 50% of the war by having them in your life. And I also have them, and some of my parents are pretty much supportive. So actually, before us going to the participants' question, I would like to ask one of my personal question. Well, I'm right now a high school student in Austria, and I really don't like biology, first of all. That's
Okay.
the problem. I
That's
really don't
okay.
like biology. The thing is that that's the only subject that I'm pretty much bound to study
Mm-hmm.
rather than having a, like interested or feel like, okay, I really want to do it or something like that. So people like
Mm-hmm.
me, what are the
Mm-hmm.
advice that you're gonna give? Or you're just gonna say, oh, don't need to study, just leave it behind and it's okay if you get a passing grade or something like that. Because that's my mindset of right now. But like
Mm-hmm.
what's your advice like to me as a younger brother?
That's a good question, but I want to have a follow-up question. Why don't you like what like annoys you about biology?
Everything, starting with memorization. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
guy like who really likes to memorize the stuffs. And first of all, I know like my curriculum is pretty much bounded together with some practical stuffs. I really like to do practical. Also, I wrote research papers in biology sector too. But the things are like that. Like let's say I would like to give an example from math. I did
Mm-hmm.
differentiation, integration. I'm really following the things, but in biology, I really couldn't. I really don't know what is xylem vessels, what is phloem vessels, how transpiration works, what is osmosis, or gas exchange, or some nuisance like chi-squared goodness fit or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That are the things that really not like caught my interest. Now the thing is that right now I'm really struggling because my exam is just in 2 months. So any advice from for me?
Oh, that's like, thank you for that question. I think like a lot of, okay, someone commented, I myself don't enjoy. Yeah. Oh. So, yeah, I agree with Afra. I think like, so I don't think biology is just about memorization, but like, I think the way we're taught biology is that, you just have to, this is how it works and that's it. Like, just memorize it, write it in the exam, and then you're done. If you look at biology in that way, then I think that's the same way I think some people approach math, that oh, it's just like calculations and I will never use this in my real life. And like, I just need to pass, right? So I think it's your approach. Um, that matters. So to get yourself excited about biology, I think like stay in touch with like there's a lot of biotech blogs, for example, or like biotech research that's happening, right? There's if you guys are into if like genetic engineering interests you, right? If like if modeling interests you in infectious disease, for example, like because you were talking a bit about math. So Amra, we like people do modeling to basically understand the impact of vaccines or um impact of interventions and things like that. So again, that's where math comes into play, right? So অনেকের আমারও এটা একটা মিসকনসেপশন ছিল, to be honest, যে ম্যাথ করতে হবে না বায়োলজি পড়লে. That's a lie, right? You need math. You need to understand math. So in the same way, like if you go on, for example, to become a bioinformatician, or even like regardless, right? Even as a human being living in this current climate, I think an understanding of biology is like very important. Like be it tomar like like the vaccine. um I'm in the States, so like I think like just an overall understanding of biology gives you an overview of, like, for example, how like vaccine efficacy works, for example, right? And having these important conversations with people as well, which I think requires an understanding of biology. So, um, like, again, to be a responsible citizen of the world, I think you need an understanding of biology. And also in your future career, if you want to collaborate with biologists, you need an understanding of biology. And biology aspect is becoming so interdisciplinary. Like, it's in like biomedical engineering, for example, right? So to have these conversations, you also need to understand biology. And yeah, but overall, like look up, what's happening in the field of biotech. It's very cool. Like, so you'll find something that interests you. So maybe you'll be like, acha, এটা পড়লে আমি এটা বুঝবো যে এটা কিভাবে করছে সায়েন্টিস্টরা, or maybe you'll like pursue something in biology if you um learn more about what's happening in the field. I don't know if that answers your question, but I
I
hope.
mean, it's perfect. Like I got convinced 50%, but the rest 50% depends on my effort, I think so.
Yeah.
And I'll try my best. But regarding the questions from the participants, most of
Mm-hmm.
the questions are from your admission journey, but as CORViS is an organization who really preach, like the research-based programs. So as you're a researcher, so I'm gonna bounded my participant questions like in the research field specifically. So the first question to you, are majors such as biotechnology, biochemistry, and microbiology viable career paths given the increasing number of students pursuing these fields?
A good question. I don't know about the number of like students who are like pursuing like microbiology or biochem. Um, but I think like there's a lot of like especially now that like genomics is like really like at its peak, I think picked up like I feel like in every era there's like um something big that happens in the field. I feel like in biology, it's like genomics that is still like we're still doing like a lot of cool things with genomics, and there's still new like advancements in the field that come like every year we're getting better. So I think there is a lot of scope still. And you know, infectious disease is not going anywhere. Like, and especially with climate change, that influences living beings, right? We need more biologists. So I don't think it's like a bad career choice if you want to study biology, given the state of the world, as sad as it sounds. But yeah, and I think there are loads of different jobs that are there, right? So not everyone wants to do a lab-based job, for example. You can also be like you can also pursue things like I think what we don't talk about as much is like even patent law, for example, is a field that you can get in if you have a biology degree and then you get a law degree, and then you can help people get their patents. And you need a foundation in biology to do that. So that's just a small example, but I think yes, it's a good career choice. But like you do have to put in a lot of effort in making yourself stand out and developing your skills if you want to make it in the field. But I think that's with every field, right?
Um,
Yeah.
and another question to you, like, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like neuroscience, it's basically a branch of biology, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
there is a participant who asks that is neuroscience a demanding field of study at the undergraduate level in the world, maybe in particularly in US, because I think so the participants really want to pursue his or her undergrad in the US. So what do you think about it? Like, is neuroscience really a demanding field or not?
I think definitely it is. Like we even at Penn State, like there's a neuroscience like center. There's like a lot of people who work, you know, on neuroscience, and it can also be very interdisciplinary as well. So yeah, it's a demanding field. I think almost every like university that I've like been in collaborations with, they have a neuroscience department, or like they're trying to set it up. So it is like I think the US is great for neuroscience, and a lot of things are happening. Like I can say for Penn State, for example, we do have a neuroscience center, and I had friends who, did lab rotations in a neuroscience lab. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things happening, and neuroscience is fascinating. So if you're interested, definitely, I think US is a good place. I can only say about the grad level, not undergrad, but yeah, I hope that helps.
And I think so the most important question, like it's about
Mhm.
choosing a research topic. How did you decide on your research topic and what factors did you consider while selecting it
That's a
in
great question.
general?
That's a great question. I think it depends on like what career stage you're in. So when I was an undergrad and I had like a 3-month research project, I just chose something that I wanted to like explore, right? So that back then, I think that wasn't really the research question driving it. It was more like what skills do I want to develop, and I want to work in the lab and get used to the lab techniques. So I chose a lab that will allow me to do that. And for my honors, that's when I picked a like of course, a lab where I would be able to do what I want to do, but also, and like develop my skills as a scientist, because I think that's what you really want to focus on during undergrad as well, to basically build your skills, right, which you can then apply to any field. So I think what I consider in my research questions, even because I had to do lab rotations for my PhD as well. Like once I had the skills, again, you can also do trainings for the skills as well, if you want to develop them. For me, I am very interested in solving public health problems. So I chose a research question that will allow me to do something translational. So, from the bench to people, right? From the lab bench to actually reaching people. What can I like focus on in my research that will lead to something translational, right? And also, help me understand the biological mechanism driving it, right? Like I don't want to see just associations. I also want to kind of understand like the mechanism. So again, those are things that interest me, like which are again very like interdisciplinary and also like quite like I think niche as well. So I had to find professors who are doing that work too. But that was like fortunately it worked out. So I guess those are the kind of things that I personally consider in my research questions is, can we like is this going to have a public health impact? And can we understand the biological mechanism for it with our approach? So those are the questions that I thought about, like what's happening, how do we find out how it's happening, and is it going to help people? Those are the three things.
Cool, but I'd like to add one thing because regard like during my research paper, so there's one thing or one incident that I'd like to share. I had to choose a research topic first of all. So at the time, my professor told me that choose a research topic which really matches my interest. So at the time, I really hadn't that much of interest, just like you, as you said, in 2014, me in 2025. So just with that being said, my professor, then I honestly told her that, okay, I'm not really interested in that kind of fields. Then she told me to choose a particular subject because I had, at that moment, I had the chance to write my research paper on English language and literature, or German, or Italian, or, biology, chemistry, any subject. It doesn't actually matter. It doesn't matter, but you just have to choose a particular topic and write it. So at that time, what I really did is that I just sat into my table and just do some, like tally ranking. Okay, that subject really focuses my interest that I want to do in my future. That's my future goals. Sometimes I think it's pretty much needed to be a bit of realistic because I already completed my research paper. It was in economics, and I really want to pursue economics in my undergrad, hopefully, together with data science. But I chose economics. It's not like that I really enjoy that subject. I did it because I really want to make something quite good out of it. So that was like my way to go. And I really consider humans are not humans if they are not adaptable. So interest, of course, first of all, the interest is the first and foremost priority. And second, my suggestion would be like do something that actually gives you a good return because every investment must have a return. So return should be something that we all should look for. Otherwise, I think so. I mean, with interest, it's pretty much convenient. What you feel pretty much interested, you're gonna do that. But still, there is something that should come out as an outcome, as an input and output. So that's my opinion about it. So last question to you. I really don't want to take it much more longer because, of course, we all are first Ramadan. We all are pretty much tired. Um, it's about staying competitiveness in biosciences. So, what skills, strategies, or tips are essential to excel in the field of biosciences and secure internships and jobs from the outset? You somehow answered the question, but if you want to say it again in few words or try to have a brief discussion about it?
Okay, so what skills, right? So the question is, what skills would you need to,
Yes,
have?
and strategies and tips.
So I think like again at the high school level, if you can like start developing your like coding skills, I think that will help immensely, regardless of which, biological career path you embark on. And if you can do internships and like research centers, that's great. If not, that's okay. Like in undergrad, try to look into like again, I think university websites are a great resource. Like you can see the departments and see which professor is working on what, right? Reach out to those professors if you want. If there's something, I think in the undergrad level, just explore like whatever interests you, right? So reach out to professors, try to see if you can maybe work with them in their lab or even just shadow what they're doing. And again, meanwhile, also keep building your like Python skills or R skills, any coding skills that interest you. And there are a lot of free resources as well where you can learn, right? And yeah, like try to do some like research projects in your undergrad. I think that's very important. So I think that's all that, and keep in touch with what's going on in the field. I feel like that because then you can have like better conversations with people and network, right? Reach out to people who are doing the cool things, and so that they know that you exist and you're interested. I think like networking is something we don't talk about enough, but it's one of the most important things. So yeah, I feel like develop your soft skills, develop your hard skills, and yeah, just reach out to people who you think you want to learn from.
One extended question, like regarding it.
Mhm.
So you already worked, you have a bit of experience in
Mhm.
working in Bangladesh. So can you please enlighten us with some of the few exciting research topics or research activities that are going on in my country? Or
Sure.
it's a secret that can't be revealed?
No, I think like again, I'm very fortunate that I worked in an amazing organization when I was in Bangladesh, the Child Health Research Foundation. They are doing amazing work on like in genomics and infectious diseases. So for example, like understanding what are the kind of pathogens which are like bacteria or viruses that cause illness in children, right? What are the bacteria viruses like circulating in Bangladesh in among children, and then trying to sequence or like understand the genetic code of these like bacteria or viruses, which can help us design better vaccines or treatments, etc. Right? So that's like what I got to work on when I was trying to do research in Bangladesh as a research officer at CHRF. So that's just one example. And they do have like training programs for high school students if you guys want to see like that in like I know Tasin, you're in Austria, but like for those in Bangladesh, that is like something that they do to basically show like young students like you that what a career in biology looks like. So yeah, that's I think like that's one example of like the public health. So in the public health realm of what's happening, right? So understanding the genomics of like bacteria or viruses that are causing diseases. They're also CHRF is also doing like single cell sequencing, which is again a new method to understand how vaccines, like to understand basically the immune system and among in children. And again, like that's just from my short time there, like there, that was just over like 3.5 years, right? So there is a lot of, again, I had very limited experience just in that, in one organization. But I think like even universities are doing amazing research or trying to, I think there is a lot of hope still in biological sciences, but I do see a lot happening in the infectious diseases and genomics realm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like we got one question in the chat box. It's from
Mhm.
Tasmia Jahan Roshan. So I'll just gonna Okay, we got another one. Okay, let's let's go one by one. So it's about
Sure.
like for people who doesn't have the opportunity to study abroad, do you really think that it's a good option to do bachelor's in subject related to biology in Bangladesh?
Yeah, it's a tough question. Uh um I think like from my experience of meeting, because again I did not study in Bangladesh. Like I was very like fortunate that I got to study overseas for my undergrad as well. So I can only speak from the based on experiences of people who I've met, who I've talked to. Right. So, for example, even in my university, there are people who have come from like Shahjalal University, right? SUST, right? So there are people from SUST, there are people from Dhaka University. So there are people who, did their undergrad in Bangladesh, got lab experience during their like honors or masters, right? Then maybe they most of them who have met worked for like 2 or 3 years like me, and then they came to do their PhD. So it is possible to like, and there are people who are doing it, right? I think they would be better people to answer what kind of resources are available. But I've met amazing, very talented people who did their on like, undergrad or master's in Bangladesh in biology. Um, but again, I can't speak for like, maybe what challenges they had to overcome. But like, yeah, I do think it's still like you can still like get to the PhD level because so many people are doing it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. But there is another question. I really don't think
Mhm.
so. Are you the perfect fit to ask that question? It's about pharmacy.
Okay.
Uh, Faiza Haq. It's about like, is it possible to do a PhD without a master's with a bachelor's in pharmacy? I don't think it's
Um,
possible, right?
well, I don't have a master's and I'm doing a PhD. So it depends on which country you're applying to. For example, in the US, PhD programs are minimum of 5 years, and most people don't have masters coming in. They're straight off undergrad, or like me, they worked for a bit and came from undergrad. So it's not a requirement like it is in maybe the UK to have a master's. So you can definitely apply to countries like the US where you don't need a master's to do a PhD. And regarding the interdisciplinary aspect, I don't work with like that's one of the things I want to basically incorporate into my research somehow, which is like, for example, antimicrobial resistance is a huge problem, right? Which is what we're facing. Public health crisis we're also facing now because as antibiotics become like less effective at treating infections because of antimicrobial resistance, and that's a whole thing with another that needs another webinar. But overall, I just wanted to present this to you as a problem, right? That this is a problem that biologists need to solve, but along with clinicians and pharmacists, right? So there are things like, and this is just an example where you would need like pharmacists and biologists and clinicians to collaborate. And pharmacy is like, like the whole pharmaceutical sector has R&D, right? So like research and development. So I do think that there is like a scope for interdisciplinary research. Uh, but wait, my goal is to, okay. And okay, if your goal is to solve public health problems, from my um, experience, I haven't worked with like pharmacists personally, but I do think that their skills in understanding like drug interactions and mechanisms was is something that is an asset. And yeah, antimicrobial resistance is just an example, but yeah, I think there is scope for it. But if you're more interested in the biology, I would say that biomedical science or biotech or microbiology covers that more than pharmacy. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, perfect. I mean, we got the last question, and it's about the academical journey. So it's about like what kind of activities did you do besides academics and during undergrad?
Yeah, for me personally, I did like I was a resident assistant for my dorm, so and like that also gave me some like work experience. So basically, as a resident assistant, you know help out the administration with like events to carry out events for residents and things like that. So that's I met a lot of people through that, for example, and it also gave me some work experience. I also joined clubs, right? And then any sort of like seminars that were on campus, I was there. So I met people through that, career fairs. Even though as an international student, you have to face questions about visa, and it's a bit disheartening at times, but you still get to meet people, right? And you still get to understand what are the sort of companies that come for these career fairs and network with them. So go to like all events related to that. There are a lot of talks that happen on campus. So I would network there. And yeah, I also did a small internship at a science communication like the company. So that was also something I did to network. Yeah. So yeah, you're welcome, Faisal. So I think that's what I like now. That makes me sound like such a boring person, but I think in terms of like ECA,
No. That's
that's
not. That's not. So we all know. I think so. Like it's also Ramadan time in US, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I know. Even my sounds are. I know my vocal is getting low, but because
No,
I have
that's I
iftar. I have iftar in
yeah.
1 hour, so it
Okay,
makes
okay.
sense.
All right. But I hope that answers
Okay.
Srijita. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So my co-host, like, একটু internet সমস্যা হয়েছে. So we're gonna just end the session here. And thank you so much. Like I really enjoyed it
Sure.
because although it's not a subject of my expertise, but I really got something. At least like আমার প্রফেসররা অনেক চেষ্টা করছিল আমাকে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করার, আমি হই নাই, কিন্তু at least আমি বলতে পারবো 20 থেকে 30% I got influenced by you, by your activities, যেটা আমার
50%
জন্য
এখন এত কমে গেছে কিভাবে?
এখন
15
এটা
মিনিট আগে
আরেকটু আরে
বলতে
আরে
50
if you give us some 1 hour more time then maybe 50 থেকে 60 70 হয়ে যাবে, এটা সমস্যা নাই, but overall sense I think so. I mean I got at least আমি বলতে পারবো that না, I have an aim right now to actually look at the book and study for something. যেটাই হোক, so we're gonna end the session here. Thank you so much, and on behalf of CORViS, I'm really conveying my best heartful gratitude for your future endeavors, and also inshallah we're gonna see you as a successful scientist from our country maybe someday. And of course like আমি personally অনেক খুশি হব, সত্যি কথা যেটা, and our Corvis whole team, they are gonna root for you. And with that thing, and last few words for our general audience. Thank you so much for joining this today's session. I know it was a hard time, and of course first Roja, সবাই খুবই tired, but I feel like in future times we are gonna host some other sessions with some other academicians also, and also undergrad and grad students pursuing like different fields in different areas of knowledge, maybe throughout the continent in Europe or Austria or in some other countries too. With that being said, please stay with us, and hopefully we're gonna get back to you with some other exciting sessions. And last not the least, thank you so much, Apu, and hopefully we're gonna meet soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect.
Bye.